gets done talking, but we know how that goes. So I think the plan is we got a couple of teenagers with handheld mics. We grab teenagers so that they can, move quickly. And that way, if somebody has a question to ask, we're going to need to turn that, just be careful of it, basically. So they've got green and red, it looks like. Just be careful. When they start passing in front of the speakers, they'll do that kind of thing.
They look really good.
Anyway, so if you have a question, go ahead and raise your hand so we can kind of start getting that ready. If you've got a question for Tim, and I asked him, I said, can we ask anything? And he said yes.
No, I didn't.
Oh. So come on up here if you want, and we'll have a seat and get comfortable. So I'll kind of get us started. So the first question that I had, what's the craziest thing that happened while filming? So like if you're filming Kentucky Field, and I know crazy stuff had to happen at some point, like what was the craziest thing that happened?
Golly. You're talking about a lot of road miles. We drove into a tornado one time on the way to Western Kentucky. That was interesting. And I'm telling you what, one thing after another. The craziest thing, just something totally unexpected. Besides driving into a tornado, gosh, there were so many unexpected things that happened. I guess a lot of the crazy stuff happened on the setup because of the show.
Okay.
One time I was sitting at my desk, and I'm like maybe hyperactive. They probably, back in the 70s, they didn't have ADHD
right.
medication.
You're just a crazy person.
So the teachers would give you 3 legs.
Right.
So I was always pranking people. So I had to expect to get pranked in return because that's the way that works. I'd always do a phone prank, change my voice or something. So one time I was sitting at my desk at Kentucky Field, and this woman's voice came on the phone. She said, "Tim," she said, "this is Carolyn Morgan." She said, "I'm down here in Muhlenberg County." Of course, I used to listen to all those guitar players down there. She says, "I'm down here talking to Don Everly." And I'm like, how many people are familiar with the Everly Brothers music? Okay, I love the Everly Brothers. I'm an Everly Brothers nut. And I thought, okay, somebody's messing with me. Because we're driving around on the road in Kentucky Field, and all my producers are listening to 50s stuff, which I had no choice because my parents had control of the knob.
Right.
So when I was a kid, I was listening to 50s stuff. I love the Everly Brothers. So I said, "Who is this, and why are you messing with me like this?" I said, "Who is it? Come on." She said, "No." She said, "I'm related to Royce Morgan. Royce Morgan played guitar for Patsy Cline and Jim Reeves and the Everly Brothers." And I'm like, wait a minute, maybe there's something to this. So she says, "I am standing here with Don. He watched a couple weeks ago, he watched your show, and he saw you singing an Elvis song. Because we always do Christmas shows, and I goof on Elvis. So I always played music, so on and so forth. So he wants to know if you'll come down and do a show." So I'm like, "Yeah." Because they owned at the time, they called it Everly Inn. Okay. It was down there on Lake Malone. It was a nice place to go stay and fish. So long story short, I went down there. There he was. I sang with him, did a show with him, took him fishing, him and his teacher. Did anybody see that show with me and the Everly Brothers? See? Isn't that cool?
Well,
I got to sing with him.
He's old enough to remember.
So I got to sing with him, and then after we were done that night, after we did a show, and Cowboy Jack Clement was there too, he said, if I ever want to do a show here in Kentucky or surrounding states, and Phil can't make it, would you fill in?
That's awesome.
Like, yeah, and I did 2 concerts with him.
Nice.
So that was probably one of the crazier things that happened.
Were there a lot of bloopers and outtakes and stuff?
There were so many. There were so many. I remember when we first started, I was competing in IBO, So I would go around and shoot competitions. I started winning. Started winning some big tournaments and was ranked in the world in IBO. And, you know, during that time, people started paying attention. Because like you said, it's not the normal thing. So a couple guys did television shows, and a guy named Marvin Bartlett out of Lexington did a show and got an Emmy on his reporting. You know, he made a nice little segment. So that's kind of how that started. So I was like, how do I look at this camera? And you know, it was a mess to begin with. I wasn't quite ready for it, but they kind of pushed me into it.
Right.
So that's how all that started. I started shooting, and next thing you know, I'm host of Kentucky Field.
Nice. Cool.
Scary stuff.
All right. Do we have any questions? Yep.
I was just curious, do you get an opportunity to go to other churches and share your faith and share your story and the difference that it made?
Yes, you know, I do speaking actually all over the United States and other states, and I do this. I can't very often because we have a couple businesses and we stay really busy, but if we're able to do such, I do enjoy sharing my story, and hopefully, you know, one thing that I didn't talk about during the presentation there was, you know, I left off the part where they said, hey, we're sending you home, and here's your pain medication that you're going to take the rest of your life. And the ADHD thing got me. That didn't end up that way. I called Colonel Jackson, now still being a Marine, you know, take X amount of these a day from Colonel Jackson. And I'm like, okay, I got to do this or I'm violating a direct order. That's how much of a Marine I was. So I called him one day and said, do I have to take this stuff? He said, Tim, he said, you got RSD. He said, you're going to have to take something the rest of your life. I said, but technically, do I have to take, am I violating a direct order by not taking? And he laughed. He said, Tim, you know, you're not in the service anymore. He said, he said, you're such a Marine. He said, and he called me a name that I can't say here, just jokingly, because we became friends. And what I heard was, I don't have to take this stuff.
Sure.
So I flushed it down the commode. And then I found out what withdrawal is.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's nothing against those doctors at that time. I was talking to a nurse, where's she at? Right here. She said that was just standard protocol. That's what happens. You give, if you're in that kind of pain, that's what you did. And so it wasn't, you know, I'm not blaming anybody. But then I went through withdrawal, and I thought that I was going to die. Sure. And so I laid there and sweated, and I felt like my bones were going to break. And that one, I can't remember how long. It was a really fuzzy state of my life. But then I remember waking up one morning, and I was 120 pounds, was sleeping 16 hours a day. All of a sudden, I had an appetite. I could taste my food. I was hurting something awful. And I called Colonel Jackson. I said, I'm off of that stuff. I said, I'm not taking it anymore. I said, but what do I do about this pain? I said, tell me the truth. You know, how long is it going to take me to get better? He said, it's going to get worse. He said, I'm going to be honest with you. He said, it's only going to get worse as you atrophy and things, you know, it's just going to become, your shoulder's going to get tight because you're not using it. You know, your blood flow is going to change. He said, it's going to get dramatically worse in your lifetime. Well, I better stay busy.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. I went fishing, and I learned how to do things with my left arm.
Yeah.
And now the pain is overwhelming sometimes, and Nikki can relate to that. And she's very patient because a lot of times, you know, you try to do something with one arm. Something as simple as, say you're gonna put a picture on the wall.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so you got an old hammer, and you got a nail, and you're trying to get it in there, and you're like, and she's like, no, here, let me help you with that. And she helps me with everything. So God put her in my life because she's very patient. She puts up with me. And when pain is overwhelming and an issue, it can make you grouchy. She'll attest to that. But I have somebody there who's special, and she's very patient with me. And we're joined at the hip. We don't do anything. We do not do anything without each other. If I'm going somewhere, she's going somewhere. Except occasionally she lets me go fishing.
So you mentioned that the pain is still
It's
a
overwhelming.
thing.
If I put this on you right now, I would probably think you'd be rolling around and saying, make it stop.
Sure.
But I'm used to that. I would much rather feel that horrific, burning, deep, 14 toothache pain than to take those stupid, horrible, life-sucking drugs. And it just, I have been put in a position to be in front of people and talk about this. And I deal with rehab places. I talk with people who are at Cardinal Hill who've had strokes and injuries, and I try to get them back going with, that's another thing that I never said why. I never asked why. I just felt like I had to keep moving ahead. But it occurred to me after I'd been on Kentucky Field, maybe a year or two, I started getting calls from Tennessee, from Indiana, surrounding states. Guy had his arm blown off in an electrical accident, wanted to shoot a bow with his teeth. This kept me very busy going from rehab place to rehab place, or people having events at Salado Center where people came and I showed them how to. And this guy was so happy. He was a natural athlete. He was a rodeo guy and an electrician. And so within 15 minutes, he was shooting a bow like me. And he was like, I'm done. I'm out of here. I'm going to put my stand up right now. I've never seen a happier guy in my life. So I realized real quick why things won't happen randomly.
Yeah.
And I realized that was what I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
And so hopefully, I don't think I'm the best speaker in the world, but hopefully sometimes you reach somebody, with that message. Just get up and do it.
Sure.
Don't hesitate. If it's something you want to do, just try to do it. Persevere.
Yeah. And God will use those things, like as you just said, to help other people.
I
Yeah.
hope so.
Yeah,
Endeavor to persevere. You remember that?
That's right.
The Clint Eastwood
That's
movie?
right. All right. Any other question?
Can I have it?
Oh, yeah, there you
Can I
go.
chew on that?
Go for it.
Those are sausage. Who made the sausage ball?
Yeah, who made the sausage balls? Beverly? She's not want to raise her hand.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
Where did you get this recipe from? Those are good. You want to do that on a show? You want to come on our show and make this?
Oh, yeah, there we
The
go.
problem is she thinks I'm kidding.
That'd
You
be,
can come on our show and make these. Did you have one of these? Oh,
yeah.
that's good.
Yeah, we know how to cook around here. I've only been here about 8 months, and I've gained a lot of weight.
My dad, he's still a preacher to this day. But I remember around the Maysville area, around Stone Lake, we'd go around that area, and man, the food. I wish I could find Linda and Ruby Cole. They may not still be living. But we'd go to their house and they have this spread. Of course, the iced tea was amazing. But the mashed potatoes, the green beans, the fried chicken. I don't know, man.
Yep.
These are really good, by the way. You want to try one of these?
Yeah. Hey,
What's up?
fried chicken for lunch. And you know
Did
what?
she make it?
You know what? They live right here.
Really?
Guess where we're going? I'll just cancel the pizza. So, did the doctors ever suggest like amputation as a way to kind of,
Immediately.
and how come you didn't go that route?
Because I still hoped that I would be able to play the guitar.
Ah, gotcha.
Because I played the guitar, the mandolin, the banjo, I played the fiddle, I played the drums, I played the keyboards. I thought maybe there's some hope.
And how many years ago was the accident?
Next year will be 40 years. And you're saying, how can that be when you're 35 years old?
And wow, so at no point in the last 40 years did you, were you tempted to say, you know what, let's just hack this thing off,
Well, the thing about that is I asked, would the pain be less? They said it could be more.
Really?
Now, I've got metal all up in here, and that I went to him early. He said, once I figured out I wasn't going to be able to use my, but I still have some use of my arm. I still have my shoulder. I can still hook a brace up with a piece of coat hanger on it and a pick. I still play lead guitar.
Oh.
So I do have some use of my arm. But when the pain would get real bad, I'd call the doctor and say, well, would it help if we took this off? They said, no, might make it worse.
Wow.
I don't need that in my life.
Yeah, sure.
But I do need more of these. Nick, can you take a bite of this? I'm serious. Oh, this is good.
Look, he's leaving me a little time.
Yeah, there you go. There's your bite. Yeah. Yeah, just in case you just came in the last few minutes, I assume there's still food. Yeah, there's food back here. There's probably food in the kitchen. So if you're hungry, feel free to go find something.
But you probably shouldn't eat those.
Yeah, don't eat the sausage balls.
We might be taking those home. Maybe. Go in there and grab them. Throw your shirt up.
Hey, look at there.
Oh,
Jerry to the rescue.
I know where the food's at.
Yeah.
You can ask him.
that is. Now, let me ask you this. Is this something you came up with, this own recipe?
No, someone that I worked with years and years ago made those.
You know, so many of our recipes are from lunch ladies and from the good old boys down in Western Kentucky that had barbecue places. I've stole a bunch of stuff, but we come up with a lot of stuff too. Oh my! Are you going to come on the show and do that? Why would you not? It's just us. You're scared of the camera, aren't you? Would you give us the recipe and let us use your picture? Was that a no?
Yeah. So that's her daughter right there. She'll take care of you for it.
There you go.
Cool. I was thinking, I was talking to my daughter about this. We'll be watching Kentucky Field, and you'd be fishing, one-handed, and then sometimes, like if you've got a bait caster in your hand, you're like reeling it in with your teeth, and then other times it looks to me like you're basically just forget the bow and you're just like dragging the line in, one-handed, obviously. But one of the things that we noticed is the crew doesn't often step in, and I told her, I said, I wonder if he specifically said, let me do as much as I can, It's kind of that way of just showing like, hey, if I can do this, you can too.
It was kind of an unspoken thing, but more than anything, they had two hands on the camera.
Yeah, that makes
So
sense.
we don't want them dropping the camera because those things are like $30,000. So, and I never really thought about it. I'd always figured out how to do things on my own. If it's to the point where I get my bait all clombed up and I have to tie a bait on, that's a pain. But has anybody seen Clay Dyer?
Oh yeah. Yep.
I had him on the show one time. I thought I was blinding somebody out. What I'll do is I'll take on this Velcro part here, I'll put a hook in there. And that holds the bait, and then I'll put it in there. I'm trying to get it tied and everything, complaining about that. And then here's a guy with no arms. He's got one little nub here, and he actually sticks the hook in his arm, and he ties that with the teeth. I thought, what am I complaining about? And he's like, all his teeth are just down the nubs because he uses his teeth for everything.
Sure.
And doesn't complain. Has no legs, no arms. And if you get a chance to look him up, Clay Dyer.
D-Y-E-R, I think.
I think it's D-Y-E-R.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
You
that's
want
right. No, I'm good, thanks. Somebody's got to be in control up here, Yep.
Usually about every other week, because it takes a while to edit it. Most people have a season. If you watch Yellowstone, per se, there's 10, 11 episodes of that. Of course, that's an hour show. But most shows have 13 to 17 shows, then they go into a rerun season. What we try to do with our show is put something fresh on at least every other week. And sometimes people haven't seen that rerun that we do. That way we have fresh stuff on all the time. Now that puts us at 26 shows a year, which is a lot. But it doesn't seem that much to us because at one time I was doing Kentucky Field, Tim Farmer's Homemade Jam, which was a music show, and Country Kitchen, and having a catering business, and doing other things. I don't really know how we did it. We were young. Yesterday. Oh, so good.
Now, So you were telling me that you recently opened a music studio in Lexington.
Well, I've always had a recording studio.
Okay.
Since 1986, I've had a home studio. So if I wanted to lay anything down or do commercials for people or things like that, I've always had music in my life. So if I want to lay down a segment for Kentucky Field where I wanted to do a background version of my old Kentucky home, or there was another series that I did not too long ago that had some auto harp in it, things like that, I could always go to my studio. And about 12 years ago, I was looking at my retirement situation with the Department of Fish and Wildlife and figured out I had almost 30 years in. I thought, what am I going to do after Kentucky Field? At that time, I was doing some things that I wanted to do on Kentucky Field that really didn't have anything to do with the Department of Fish and Wildlife. I was interested in, we did canning, we always did processing, we showed how to cut the deer up, we showed so many things. I still use our own video when we cut a deer up, how to process a deer.
I've got it on my phone.
A lot of people use it. So I thought as a sportsman, anybody can shoot a deer. But what's the next step? Let's figure out how to process it, cut it up, freeze it, and then let's show how to make some excellent recipes. So, as a sportsman, you don't just shoot it. That's when the work begins. But if you can show step by step how to do that. So we were cooking and canning on the show already. And after we aired the show, we would post to YouTube these videos. And one day I was sitting at my desk and I was looking at some things that we'd done. One of them was a turtle man. Anybody know the turtle man? Mm-hmm. So we started the turtle man in 2000, and I think it was 2007. And so I got to looking on there. This was before Animal Planet and all that. I found him through a mutual friend. He said, you need to do a story on this guy. I said, he's out of control. So we did it, and I looked at it. It had 1 million hits on it. That's how Animal Planet found him, through our YouTube. So I looked at a segment we did that had nothing to do with Kentucky Field that was interesting to me and our viewers, with Bill Dixon, this old timer. I think he was 92 at the time. We did an old-time hog killing. It had nothing to do with Kentucky Field. So I tried to tie it in with there are a few wild boar in Kentucky, and you can take those and clean them just like this. But I was more interested in the process and getting that on tape, traditional type things that we've done in Kentucky. I mean, back when I was a kid in Mason County, hog killing time, you knew it. You'd see the whole family out. You'd see them pulling the hog up. There's people who were scraping. Everybody had their job. So I documented that, and I was looking at the analytics. You can get on YouTube and look at the analytics. I thought, it's got 1.5 million hits. So what it told me is people are interested in, okay, here's a canning segment. It's got, 900,000 views. I thought, okay, people are interested in that. So I was out mowing the yard, which I like to do. It's when I do my best thinking. And this little thing, the mower, Nick, our son, who's out of control, he would mow when I was gone. He'd be listening to his headphones and not looking around, hitting rocks, and the deck was about to fall off. And it was making a really funny noise. And as I was mowing and I'm waiting for the deck to fall off, I was like, they say you are what you eat, so I don't eat chicken feet. So I ran to the house, went to my recording studio, and recorded that in 10 minutes, wrote it and recorded. Yeah, well, you need to thank Nick for tearing my lawnmower up. There we go. That's how a mother justifies their kids' bad behavior. So long story short, I had that concept, and I still had a couple years to go with the Department of Fish and Wildlife, but I couldn't let it go. I couldn't wait. So we put it on the air on the CW channel out of Lexington. I'm 27. And it hadn't been on for 2 months, 3 months, and they started getting really good reviews. But on the CW, they had some kids working on the weekends, and they made some bad mistakes. They'd hit the wrong button, and our show would air again instead of them showing our new show. And when that happened 3 or 4 times, I just happened to get a call from KET, and they said, Tim, people are asking us why this show isn't on KET. I said, I never thought. And it really never occurred to me. I thought, well, they wouldn't want 2 Tim Farmer shows on there. And they said, yes, we would really, really like to have that. Within a year, that was in the top 3. We were competing against Downton Abbey and Antiques Roadshow.
Wow.
Now, Kentucky Field was always in the top 10, but we were right in the number 2 spot on all of KET. And I thought, we might have something here. So, I recorded a song in my basement. I've always, and every year I had to get the next newest thing. So I had more guitars than y'all do sitting around. And I can still get a guitar out and play lead, and I can play some keyboards. Nikki's a great keyboard player. In fact, she ought to come up here and play something. She sings opera while she's singing, and she flies while she's singing opera. So I finally moved that out of my house on South Broadway in Lexington. Now we have a recording studio where we're producing some really good musicians, up-and-coming artists, writers, and I've got a homemade jam page if you want to visit that, Tim Farmer's Homemade Jam, and you'll see some of the artists there. And we'll probably start putting some of those on TV. On occasion on Country Kitchen, you'll see artists that share their gifts with us. We've had Emmy Sunshine. Back in the old days, where's your guitar player?
There he is.
Dude, good job on that. And I heard him playing all kinds. I heard him play
Yeah.
Dire Straits up here.
Yeah.
You got a job? You playing with a band right now?
He's 15.
Oh,
And his
Dang.
dad owns a cattle business that is doing really well. And I think
So it's keeping him busy.
Joe was telling me he's wanting to go into cattle, something in college you were wanting to go that direction, weren't you? Last I heard. But he just got second place in the state FFA talent.
Wow.
Talent show.
congrats.
It's-
Well, I enjoyed that version of Cannonball Rag, which is an old Merle Travis song. But yeah, music has always been a huge part of my life. We've always had a band. We've always played quietly in other places for other folks, but that's a huge part.
Cool. So you want to play guitar with us next service?
no.
Oh.
I don't have my brace.
Oh, too bad. Any other questions? There we go.
Do you typically use your own recipes or recipes that people send to you?
Mostly it's our recipes, and what happens is when you've cooked so much for so long. My dad was a cook. If you've seen Dad on the show, of course he made old country stuff. He makes the world's greatest cheeseburgers, of course. He makes his turkey hash. He's got things that he's known for. But over the years, Nikki and I are adventurous eaters. I don't think there's any. Is there anything we don't like? Anything at all? She doesn't like cow tongue. That's understandable. I like tongue. Have you had buffalo tongue? Mm-mm. Oh, smoked buffalo tongue. They used to kill them and leave them laying and just take the tongue. It's
Really?
that good. Huh. But mostly it's, as we've traveled around, we'll go to a restaurant in the middle of nowhere. And Nikki will say, man, I want you to do that. So I have to go home and reverse engineer it. Mm-hmm. Okay, and I'm going to tell you, okay, I know there's something really odd in here. I think it's white pepper, maybe turmeric, so on and so forth. And we get the basic concept. It's a squash soup that she's had somewhere. And we'll go home and I'll make it. And I'll try to make it better for her. And she likes it when I do that. So, every time that we go out, let's say it's a farmer's market, you see cabbage. The other day we were like, what are we going to do on the show? We don't ever plan what we're going to do on the show until maybe the day before or the day of. What'd you have for lunch yesterday?
Oh, man, don't put me on the spot. I don't remember what I had. I don't know, it was some leftovers I found in the fridge, I think,
What was it, though? Come on, you got to be particular. He doesn't remember.
It was, I know what it was. It was leftover lasagna from Leono's. That's what it was.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. You probably wouldn't want lasagna right now. You might. It's pretty good stuff. But every day, we want to be adventurous eaters, so every day we try to think of the next thing. We were at a farmer's market, and I saw the other day, and I like pickles. And I got to thinking, have we done dill pickles on the show? And I got to thinking, I'm not sure if we've done dill pickles or not. I know we've done, and we have food products. We actually sell some bread and butter pickles. So I saw some little cucumbers, and I saw some cabbage, and we saw some tomatoes, and we saw some cauliflower. How many people have had the giardiniera?
No.
It's
Yeah.
like the hot cauliflower.
Yeah.
How many people like that?
I think it was good.
I thought, I'm going to make that. So I thought, okay, a lot of times if you buy it in the store, it's got and there's a brand name like Marzetta, it's a Marsetti or something like that, an Italian name. That's a clear liquid. and it's got some heat to it. And I don't know what, on the sides it says Greek peppers. It's something hot. But I thought, she doesn't like it that hot, and I like a little sweet in it. So if I could take that giardiniera, as they say it in Italian, if we could put that in a jar and put a little turmeric in it, and do a little sweet, just a little hot for her, because she didn't like that hot. And we made it, and we tried it, and it was absolutely delicious. So we took our cauliflower that we bought at the farmer's market, and we made a giardiniera. And then we made it, as they say, you take a giardiniera.
That's right.
We got some giardiniera by our golly.
Yeah, that's the way to say it.
And then we get, that's what we do.
Yep.
And then we made a glumke sort of thing, which is a cabbage roll. But I've always been big on making my own sausage. That's good sausage. That's store-bought, right? That's good sausage, though. But
It's the sweetness from the fingers, you know.
that's what it is. But we showed how to make what we like in a Italian mild or sweet basil sausage. Mm-hmm. So we made that to stuff the cabbage with, because cabbage is out right now. So we made dill pickles. Here's the thing that really blows people's mind about canning. You ask somebody, you're canning something. Well, how long is it going to last? It's going to last 5 years. Well, who wants to eat a 5-year-old pickle? I don't. It's nice that it keeps. But here's the thing. You know, our food science has changed so much. Everybody's scared to death to can everything because it'll make you sick. You'll get
Bacteria get in there.
You'll get something.
Right.
Well, if you do it right, our ancestors did it, and they
Yeah.
lived to be 90, and they smoked 4 packs of cigarettes a day. And they worked. They worked hard.
Yeah.
So we made some pickles. Now, what makes a crunchy pickle? Don't cook it. It's just that simple. You take your refrigerator. Ever heard of refrigerator pickles? We now have refrigerators. We now have a way to keep things cool. There's no reason a jar of pickles in my house is going to last over a week, because I do them in paint jars. So I'm not making these pickles to put on the shelf and last for 6 years, 7 years. There's no point in it. They start to lose their color and they get mushy. So what happens if you take your vinegar, a little bit of sugar, some salt, some mustard seed, some peppercorn, some fresh garlic, some dill? What happens when you mix that water up, you let your salt and your sugar dissolve, you put your fresh dill in the bottom of the jar along with your mustard seed, so on and so forth. You let it get room temperature, you stuff your pickles in there, you pour the water over it, and you put it in the refrigerator. Now the hard part is you gotta wait 5, 6 days. I can't do it, I've already eaten half a jar. But there you go, these will store in your refrigerator for 3 months. And guess what? They're crunchy. Who likes the old soggy pickle? I don't. So we showed how to do that. Now again, I don't see any reason to store them forever. So that's what we done on. I just gave away next week's show.
Well, I was looking for Jimmy Norris, because he's got some famous pickles.
Really?
I mean, yeah, they're famous around here, and they're really. I'm not like really a pickle person, but
Oh, I
yeah,
like pickles.
yeah, they're fantastic.
I like sausage.
So I don't know if sometimes there's a jar of them just sitting in there in Dale's class. And, I guess they're just there for the grabbing, So, man, they're fantastic. We got to find out his secret. He put him on the show. I bet he'd do it. You think he'd go on the show? Probably not. Ice bath. Okay.
Does he cook them after that? Lime pickles, are they lime pickles or? Yeah, that's kind of an old-fashioned thing. But again, I'm gonna put them in there for they'll be in there maximum 3 months. I got 4 or 5 jars ready to go. And the giardiniera, get some of that too, it's good.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? We've got, we'll go a few more minutes, and then I know I've talked to a few people that want to have Tim sign something or something like that. I'll make sure we leave time for that, because we're supposed to go fishing after church, and I don't want him having to hang around here with you people. Just kidding.
I've heard about this pond.
Yeah, evidently it's pretty good. I've seen it. I've not fished in it yet, but
You know, you talk about your father, and you talk about Father's Day, and you talk about our message today. Dad was completely innocent of the fact that his passion for what he did and what he passed on to me gave me a livelihood. I mean, that's not going to happen every day, but the passion that I remember being on that farm pond as a kid. You know, one more cast, Daddy, one more cast. Tell me we gotta go. Come on, Daddy, one more cast, one more cast. Because you always think you're going to catch a state record on the
next cast, yep.
But it was always a fly rod. You know, people think a fly rod is just a fancy smancy, you got to wear a LL Bean vest and smoke a meerschaum pipe. You don't have to. In the 1950s, a lot of people know out here that a fly rod, just an old fiberglass fly rod, was a utilitarian pole to catch bass and bluegill on top of the water in the summertime. It was just something you threw in the back of the truck. Wasn't anything fancy smancy. Cork body popper with little legs on it. And I've caught bass. I caught some in Florida up to 7.5 pounds on a little cork body popper. They'll eat it.
Yeah, sure.
And smallmouth.
Yeah, I was actually watching a video because I don't want to look like a complete idiot when you start trying to teach me how to fly fish. But I was watching a video, and this guy said, some famous fly fisherman said that it's the easiest way to teach a kid how to fish. He said, we talk about it today like it's something hard, but it's the easiest way to teach a kid how to fish. And I thought,
there's really only a couple motions involved.
Yeah.
And I mean, you'll find that out. It's very easy.
Yeah. Cool.
I have a question. Do you have a favorite Kentucky Field episode?
My favorite Kentucky Afield episode. Wow. Now, I like that Don Everly one awful much. Because, I mean, I got to sing with the guy. He's gone now. Both him and Phil are gone. That was pretty special. What do you think? What do I talk about more than anything else? You know, a lot of times it was the people. You know, Kentucky Afield, if you watch that show, it wasn't an Outdoor Channel presentation. I would try to find, and here's what would happen. I would go to eat at, McDonald's, usually where we got breakfast on the road. And you'd see some guys in there, with an orange hat on. Hey, man, I got the best beagle dogs you've ever seen in your life. Really? He'd show me pictures. I said, well, where do you hunt? Metcalf County. Such and such county. Here, there, whatever. I'm like, you want to go? Menifee County. And next thing you know, we're hunting and fishing with these people who are salt there. And a lot of them would say, no. But then that's the people I wanted because I knew they were genuine. They didn't have anything to prove. This is me. I shouldn't say this, but I had a star list. I had a guy, I can't tell you exactly what he said, but he called and said, let me tell you something. My name is such and such. He said, I'm trying to phrase it without saying it like he said it. He said, I'm the hottest thing on the lake. Everybody wants to do shows with me. I said, tell me your name, please. He told me, I wrote it down, and I put a big star by it. And if you would see my starboard, we never did any shows with those people. It was the guy, like her. You want to be on the show? No. I'm like, I want them. Because they were genuine and they were real. And those people, the Bill Dixons, that was pretty special. I don't know if you saw that. If you get a chance to look up Bill Dixon, Kentucky Afield, 92 years old, he shared his knowledge, stuff that's not, every day anymore. And he was just unique, man. And just when I was a kid, my mom was scared. I worried her to death because I'd just go up and start talking to people. She said, Timmy, you can't do that. And I'm like,
I've got one of them too.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I would seek the oldest guy in the room. I always wanted to talk to them because they knew stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of my friends, I've been to a lot of funerals because when I was a young kid, my friends were in their 70s and 80s.
Yep.
And, a lot of them would look at me like, this kid's crazy. When they found out that I respected them and I wanted to share in their knowledge, well, guess what? They did.
Yeah.
And I learned from the Dexter Wilburns and the Arnold Bushes and the J.J. Pollocks. And I mean, I met up with these guys, and those were my friends.
Yeah.
And, that's, I think a lot of people ignore the older folks today.
Yeah.
Buddy, that's where the knowledge is, that's where the wisdom is, and I still try to find the oldest guy in the room and see what they're up to.
Oh, I'm the same way. The guy that said he was a medic in the Army, as soon as I got here, he was one of the first people who came up and said, let's go hunting. Absolutely, let's do it.
that's always my thing.
Well, Rankin is sitting right there. Rankin and I were talking about the way that you hosted Kentucky Field. You always brought heart to it, some humor, and you could tell it was about the people aspect of the relationships, of the stories. There was an episode of Kentucky Field that ended with there was this story of some guy hunting in the woods, and there were I remember there were candles placed in the trees. Yeah. And man,
I like that one too.
Yeah,
That's one
it
of my
was
favorites.
a good one. Tell us about your kids. How old are they? You mentioned your daughter's in LA now.
From 32 to 38. And I got one in Michigan, and she's given us 3 grandkids. That's Lindsay. And she works for Consumers Energy. Then next in line is Elizabeth, who's in LA. Pray, preacher. And we went out there to visit her not too long ago. It's a scary place.
Yeah.
It's a scary place, but she loves it out there. And she's doing well, and she's got the right mindset to be out there. And then we move on down to Kelly, who produces our show. And she's a sweetheart, and she does a great job. Our show's been nominated for a couple Emmys, by the way. And then from there, we go to Rebecca, who just gave me a grandson.
Nice.
His name is Valen. I think he's going to be a rock star. What did you say, Nick? Yeah, he's 4 years old. And then there's Nick, who tore up all my stuff.
And how old is he?
He is 32. 32. And I just talked to him the other day. He's a great kid. We fish a lot together and hang out together. And just got great kids. And they were taught when they were young what's right, what's wrong, what happens at the end of this life, and what to expect in the next one. And they all on the right path, aren't they? So we're proud of that.
That's awesome. All right, last call for questions, and then I'll let Tim set up over there.
Last call for sausage ball.
Yeah, I was say Larry, you got a question?
It's a good question. He says, should you help them pick the target? Should you let them pick the target? I think the thing that we need to understand, and the biggest lesson as a father, watching the kids grow up, I think we think that they are going to process information, and just by osmosis, they're going to understand what's right and wrong. They're going to understand to say thank you and you're welcome. And my dad was all about empathy. My dad was like, what do you think that he would think if you said that? What do you think his feelings are going to be? Elvis would have said, walk a mile in my shoes. But Dad was and Dad would grieve, and he still does. If he thought he said something just the slightest bit off, and he said, what if they interpreted it this way? And he would make himself sick. Wonder if he'd hurt somebody's feelings. So I think the most important thing that we can do is these kids, and he would so clearly try to teach me and all us kids, I have a brother and a sister, here's how you treat people. Because when my girls were growing up, and I watched other kids growing up, you would see that maybe this didn't take and maybe that didn't take, and you thought it was just going to happen just by them living and breathing and so on and so forth. No, they have to be told, they have to be guided, they have to know what those 10 commandments mean, and they have to know the little sidebars to each one of those, how it makes other people feel. So I think that was the most important lesson that my father taught me, and sometimes too much. Sometimes I start doing what he's doing. I'm like, what if they take this way? I said it okay, but if they took it that, then I'm thinking, oh my goodness. She said, don't worry about that. There's no worries. But I worry. I have to call them. I hope you didn't. No. I'm like, okay, all right, okay. So I think the best thing that we can do is try to understand how other people, and it's hard for us to do as humans. But that's the best lesson that he gave me. And I determined by watching our kids grow up that we have to be there to let them know that, because it's a rough, cold world out there today. People don't know, you know, you see the falling away, but then you see things like Asbury College, and you see certain movements, and you're given hope that maybe there will be revival. But in that meantime, we have to be the ones who step up and say. I was in a car with a guy the other day, going fishing with this group of guys, and he says, my father was this and he was that. He was a Bible thumping guy, and he was just a hypocrite. And I said, all right, there are good people, and there are people that aren't so good, but don't take from that. He was one, and his dad was not a nice person. But don't think that that's the case just because you see somebody not doing right, that that's the whole case. Look at us here. We're here in a church. We're celebrating the fact that we all hope for a better life someday. And we all are together because we hope to see each other up there. We don't have to deal with the silliness we're dealing down here. And my dad calls it a blessed hope. Mm-hmm. Yep. So, I'm glad y'all are here today. And I hope I get more sausage balls.
Miss Mary?
I just have one question for you and Nikki. Pretty loud. But who comes up with the best recipes generally? Or who tweaks them? Both of you tweak them, I've noticed a little bit.
Well, I am the meat and potatoes guy. I'll be sitting around thinking, man, I want to have different food every day. I mean, we're given this wonderful earth and the gifts therein. What are we going to do with it? I think he wants us to enjoy his bounty. So we want to switch it up and try new stuff all the time. So I do that for the most part. But when it comes to the baking and the pastries and the cookies, that's her. I don't mess with that, but man, I like it when she does. When she makes oatmeal cookies, it's a task for me not to eat every one of them.
Well, and that's a health food, too. It has oats in it.
It's whole grain.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's whole food. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Anybody else? We good? Yeah. You're good. Go ahead.
All right. You all have your own animals and stuff like that. What kind of drama do you have when it comes time to kill something that you've played and out there with and walked with in your farm and everything? How much drama do you have when it's time to do the killing?
Animals are ornery. The kind of animals we have, none of them are friendly. So when it comes time, okay. The dogs are good. Of course, we generally don't eat dogs unless we're really hungry. But recently, we had a pig, and that was a pretty pig, and we were just starting to get it good and fat. So Nikki goes out there. I'm gone. I was just coming back, and I heard her say, "Timothy Brown Farmer." I'm like, what did I do? I thought I was in trouble. She said, "That pig bit me." I'm like. So she was feeding it her water, and we were. I fed it with my hands. I gave it donuts. I wanted that pig fat. I wanted a big bunch of it. But anyway, she was changing the water or something and it bit her. She said, "Look, it drew blood." And so I said, "Well, what do you want to do?" She said, "I want Large Marge gone." So Large Marge went to market before her due date. She was still a nice pig, but there was no drama there. It was immediate. And the sheep are not generally affectionate. If they are like the old girls that the brood stock we got way back when, they're gonna live out as long as a sheep can possibly live in luxury. But the new ones that are coming on, I have no problem with that. Call me cold or whatever, but remember, I've been standing in a deer stand, doing that a long time. So I am used to the thought of that is, you remember the cartoons where they'd be looking at each other and like,
It looked like a hot dog in a bun. Yeah.
That's how I Yeah, we don't do it ourselves. No, I would have a hard time doing it. In fact, I'm getting kind of soft in my old age. I'm seeing deer now that maybe I'll let them grow up and let them just hang out. But no, I have no problem.
All right, my alarm just went off to wrap it up, so let's pray, and we'll just have a few minutes for our next service. Thank you, God, so much for this time. We thank you for Tim, and we pray your blessing on him and his family. And thank you for the lessons that he was taught that have stuck with him, and that he passed on to his kids, and then now they're passing on to their kids. And Father, we thank you for that example in this time that we get to just hear from somebody other than me. And I thank you for that. And it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.